Hello everyone, so I'm Manon from HC Economist and I'm here today with Amael. So he's the CEO and the co-founder of CompPair. So hello Amael. Maybe can you start by introducing yourself a bit?
Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks for having me today. So my name is Amael Coad. I'm CEO and co-founder of Composite Technologies. I have a material science background. I'm engineer by training. Here, close by in the region at EPFL, where I did my studies in material science, and then I pursued with a PhD in material science in self-filling composites.
Okay, so maybe can you start by explaining us a bit what is composite materials and what CompPair brings to this market?
Yeah, sure. So composite materials, what we call composite materials at CompPair are carbon, glass, or natural fibers embedded in a resin to create structural and lightweight components, typically applied into the sports, nautical, wind, aerospace industries, or transportation industries. That's the famous carbon that you have heard for many different applications that you might have in your bicycle, in your skis as well. But those composites have some challenges, and especially the challenge of design. There are some design limitations. The material is sensitive to damage during its lifetime. There are small cracks that grow more and more into the structure until catastrophic failure. And this is a major problem for the industry because either people on one side repair those small damage, and this takes 6 to 7 hours per damage, even a small damage like this to repair. And for many applications, people just consider composites as consumer goods, and they just replace and produce again the parts. So this raises big questions of lifetime management as well as sustainability. And with CompPair, we are bringing the solution to reduce maintenance costs while having a positive impact on the environment. So how do we do that? We are basically changing the base material. So we are bringing traditional carbon, glass, or natural fibers with a new chemistry that has the capacity to repair ultra fast, 400 times faster than usual, or what you can find traditionally onto the market, while keeping standard mechanical properties and standard manufacturing processes.
Yeah. So you increase like the life cycle of the product.
Yeah, exactly. Parts that will be damaged, and we are speaking here about small damage, but the small damage is the start of everything.
Yeah.
And those are the small damage that we repair, and where you can extend the lifetime because you are having a maintenance cycle onto your part, and you regenerate your part during its lifetime to be able to extend the lifetime.
Okay, thank you for this explanation. I made a bit some research for this interview, and I find information about, like in 2017, you participated the event 182nd thesis event, and you already present something about composite materials. So is it from this event that the idea of CompPair started?
Indeed, it was somehow a trigger. As I mentioned before, I did run my studies here at EPFL, and you know, sometimes the life is a matter of luck as well. So I started those studies here at EPFL because it was the school close to my hometown. I was passionate about material science because you have materials all around you. Those buildings, the cars that you see behind, everywhere you have some materials. And with these studies, you understand what the world is made of, or at least that's my perception. And that's why I really like material science. And I went abroad in New Zealand for having my master thesis in composite materials. That was my first big experience into composite materials. When I went back, I did run a minor in technology management and entrepreneurship because it was something that I really liked also, and maybe why I'm also standing today as a CEO of a company. And I knew that I wanted to run a PhD. So then I had that opportunity to contribute to a research proposal as well on self-filling composites. And I started my PhD in 2014. And during those 4 years, I really liked the PhD. And at one point, there is a friend that came to me and said, you know this 3-minute pitch competition? Do you want to participate? And I was like, I didn't know. OK, let's go. Let's go ahead. I did participate, and it was somehow a success for me because I went to the Swiss final and then could represent Switzerland at the international final as well. And 1 or 2 months after, I received a call at the office, and this was from the director of the biggest trade fair in the world for composites. And I received that call. I was really surprised in my lab at EPFL to receive such a call. And the director, she told me, this is wonderful, such kind of pitch competition. I won the same on my fair. And after 1 hour of exchange on the phone, she told me, do you want to run such experience? And I could not say no, so I did go through it. And so I was regularly going to Paris, and one day when I was in Paris with several people from the composites industry, one day they told me, but your research into the lab, your deep science, does it really work? And towards the end, and it was actually after the end of my PhD, I was one day in Paris, and they asked me that, and I was like, actually, it works right now. And that's where they said, you cannot miss that opportunity. And I think for me, it was a trigger to listen to people with experience into the industry, whereas I knew that there was an interest. The professors at EPFL knew there was an interest, but when you hear such kind of thing, it's also an additional step to say, okay, I need to go ahead, I need to do that.
You point out that CompPair is the result of many years of research. How did you manage these years? Like, did you have some failures, some step backs? What is the, can you explain us this?
It's not me that did run the 12 years of research, but I could contribute to the last ones. And actually, if you look at self-healing materials, it dates back from the years 2000s in the US. And I really like the paradox of how it started. And as we were saying before, all our materials around us, we could understand it. We can understand it with material science. But you know, like me, that all those materials have a limited lifetime. And why are those materials with a limited life, whereas us, human beings, we can live for 80 years? And this is a strong paradox of, like, how can we be inspired by nature to specifically come with new materials and extend the lifetime of those applications? And that was the start of all those research. And I have to say right now at CompPair, this is also something that is driving us every day, also throughout all the developments. And so the research on self-healing materials came at EPFL in 2005, 2006, I think, with the Professor Véronique Michaud at EPFL, who was my thesis advisor, thesis supervisor then, and who is now my associate. And so it started there with several PhD theses, and in 2014, I came with my PhD thesis. And actually, that's one step back, because at that time, she said, okay, now we need to change the strategy, and people all over those years have been doing self-healing materials with the fully autonomous ability to heal. And when you want to have that into material science, you will need to make a compromise on mechanical properties and have materials that are with reduced properties. And so she came with that new strategy of saying, okay, let's stop targeting the stars, but let's target moon and have a compromise of having the healing functionality that is triggered by heat and by moderate heat. And that's what we do to repair. We just come with a heat gun, 1 minute, and it's done. We repair everything. And this enables to have really good mechanical properties at the start. So that's one, I think, step back that is really important. Then, of course, every time into science, there are some step backs, maybe some failures as well. But overall, I have to say that throughout the journey, this was all fine, and we could only learn from those failures. Another step back, which was more after my PhD, when we decided to launch officially CompPair, was on how to bring this technology onto the market in an efficient way with the right business model. Because initially, while going out of EPFL and while launching such a venture, we thought, okay, we will bring it with that way, and that way, with such a business model to the market. And when we went to startup support, they said, no, you will never manage to do that, so we will not give the support. And so we had to think really deep into how to change the business model, how to bring this technology in another way to be efficient onto the market. And actually, that's what we did. We came back to startup support at EPFL, And at that time, they said, yeah, this is the right one. And that's where it started with the startup support from EPFL. And then later on, other supports to launch the company.
I see that you mentioned it also before, but you have a strong, like massive academic background with several years at EPFL, for example. How does it feel to live this like structure, framework of EPFL, for example, to change to an entrepreneurship adventure like CompPair?
Thanks for the question, and thanks for saying that I have a massive academic background. I think I have a traditional academic background, let's say. But it's true, my PhD thesis went well. I really liked it, and we could publish quite a lot. And initially, so I really liked the PhD. I really liked teaching as well to students. And there was no like commercial potential up to the end of my PhD thesis in 2017, early 2018, and that's really in like first or second quarter of 2018 that we found the breakthrough after the end of my PhD thesis. And so at that time, I thought I will continue into academia. I had a postdoc position almost secured at Imperial College. And when it came, I had to make a decision. And what I really liked with the PhD was also to be able to say, okay, you run a project over 4 years, that's your own project, you make it grow. You make it grow like a baby, and you cannot leave your baby when you have the potential to go further and to take it to the next step. And I think that for me it was somehow an evidence to say, okay, let's go ahead, let's continue with CompPair, and let's start it. And now it's really nice to see all the people around me and all the people as well that contribute also to this journey, all the team that we could build and that is contributing to the success of CompPair, because it's not only me, it's a lot of people. And yeah, so I have to say it's wonderful. And even more, 2 years ago we were able to make like small thing like this into the lab, and now when we are running a production, it's like pallets that are coming back, and really large quantities, and so that's incredible to see your research really small in the lab that goes now to industrial scale. And even more this winter, I had the opportunity to test some of the applications of CompPair myself. So it was a real pleasure to have that. So overall, I have to say that the feeling is I don't regret anything. And even if at one point I thought that I would do another thing in my career, but I'm completely satisfied and passionate about what I do. And that's for sure that in science, to answer the second part of your question, you learn a lot of things. You learn also on the scientific skills, the science, the material science background, the composites, and all the machines, the techniques, etc. But I think a PhD is more than that, because you learn as well design of experiments, some planning, also managing people. You have the choice when you do a PhD to run some students' projects or not. And my choice was to have some students' projects. So I think I had 14 in total. So I really like to have those students' projects. And I think the last thing and the most important for the PhD that I learned was resilience. 4 years of project, it's long and it can be difficult, and it's not that you have the choice. You know, when you enroll for a job, most of the time, I say most of the time, you have the choice to say, okay, if it doesn't go well, that's fine, I change job, that's life. But with the PhD, I think you don't have necessarily the choice to change, and this learns you really well resilience. And I think that's one crucial thing that I learned with the PhD that I apply now as well with CompPair, because that's a long journey.
You talk about the student project and so on. So today you are the CEO, but your background is much more scientific. So how did you manage the managerial aspect of being a CEO? Did you delegate this? Did you like this? To manage your team and
and I still do that every day. Huh?
Yeah.
No, I really like it. I really like this, and it's a really interesting question because when you are at the base of a technology, and of course there was the professor Veronique who really supported me at the start, and then really early on my co-founder as well, Robin, and we had many people into the team as well, joining really early on part-time and then full-time. But the decision initially to say, okay, which role will I take into the startup is really important. It's really important, and I cannot say if it's right or wrong. I think I made the right choice because I really like it and I'm passionate about that. But it's also because when you are at the base of the technology, I think there are no better person, at least at the beginning, to transmit that passion that you have for this technology. And this is the choice I did because I like also presenting. I like giving back to people what I've done. And so I think that's why I decided to take that role. And I fully assume it. I fully assume it. Now, maybe sometimes it's a bit frustrating because I'm an engineer by training, but I'm not doing anymore a lot of engineering because the life of a CEO is many other things to do. But overall, I really like it. And most importantly, I follow as well the engineering, and I follow also the progress. So this is where it's really interesting. But this is also a drawback because managing it myself, as you asked before, it's difficult in terms of time because I really like as well to follow the engineering progress of the team, and I think that's my role as well, but sometimes maybe a bit too much. And this is difficult because the days have 24 hours only. So then when I finish with that, I have the other things to do. And this is why you delegate as well. I think that's one of the most important things that I learned over the last years is to delegate as well. When you launch a startup, you are alone. So you need to do everything, or you are with your co-founder or with your early team members. You do everything all together. And at one point, you start to grow, and you need to delegate to people. And you have the impression that, of course, you can still do it, but you hired people to do that specific thing, and they will do that better than you. So you need to learn to delegate and to delegate efficiently. And I think, and I hope that my team members will confirm, but I think that I've been learning that a lot over the last years. And you cannot do it in another way else than delegating as much as possible throughout your journey. To finish, like managing it myself is also difficult because when I think you need to be here for your team when they need, but delegating is so important that they can be empowered as well. But if you're here and present for your team, then you have also to catch up with everything, with your own stuff, with the governance of the company and with everything. And I catch up quite a lot on the weekends. So managing it myself, I have to say that the best thing to do is to take my holidays. And when I take my holidays, I'm sure that I disconnect. And that's the moment that is really important, is being able to disconnect, even if you never disconnect, because I still follow everything. But that's my way of being able to manage it for myself and being able to disconnect as well.
I think it's very difficult to dealing with the private life and the working.
You manage.
Yeah.
You need some support, and I have a great support as well.
Okay, perfect. Now maybe let's move on the other side. How would you describe your relationship with your clients? How did you deliver your offer to them?
That's a long journey, and what we mentioned before in the introduction is that composite materials are everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a massive industry for us with $100 billion potential, and we can be applied in any application where there are composites. But as a startup, we need to focus as well. And our focus is specifically on 3 verticals. The leisure side, where we have our products that are the products that we did commercialize, that we're using a lot. And on the wind and aerospace, the times are longer, and that's more on a project base at the beginning, but that's our other 2 verticals. And so what is really important in those 3 verticals, this is always the same steps. It's like you have the demo with the customer, then the qualification phases, and then further some pre-series and some series phase. And that's why it takes time, because what you need also to get is the risk that those people are taking. You will tell me, yeah, but maybe for a bicycle, you can put your products into the bicycle and get the bicycle next month or in 2 months. But actually not, because they are taking a lot of risk on their manufacturing line, and so they need to mitigate that risk, even if we have the best technology in the world, which we have, and they need to mitigate that risk, and this takes time. So that's why it's a long journey. But how do we do that with them? Of course, there is this phase of prospection, but then there is all other things where we start the relationship with them, and we, of course, sell our products. And typically, we take such a booklet which shows our products into it, the carbon fibers or the glass fibers as well, that you see here, which are just small things. And those are the small things that we were the size what we were doing in the lab before, but those are like stuff that are taken from big rolls now. And so we show them that, which are our products, the semi products, that are then used to have full structures and rigid structures. And so usually we show them that to get the interest, to see what is possible, and to also assess the value that we can bring with our products onto the applications, because we need to be sure as well that this will fit. What do we need to do if there is some fit also to gather? But we need to understand also this ecosystem where we can bring a lot of value. And so that's why we are, of course, providing our products, but we can provide some customization of fiber reinforcement. We can provide as well some repair supports. How will you implement repair with the heat gun or with the heat globally onto the market for them, into their application? The life cycle analysis, and coming back to our vision of circular economy, we are bringing some support in terms of life cycle analysis, being able to get the comparison between what they are doing in their current application and how much CO2 emissions they emit on a specific application, and how can we do that with our products, and what will be the impact with our product as well. These are things that we can do, and finally also getting some mandates with them and building that mandate. And the work with them, I think, is of course building a relationship, but for us what is important is also to be transparent. You need to be transparent with them and to build that relationship that is crucial to be sure that we will make this case a success and this implementation of our products a success.
Okay, thank you. You talk about the circular economy, and before you explained that the self-repairing aspect of your materials, so it's basically a sustainability issue. How would you consider sustainability in your offer, in your vision of the company?
That's in our core vision. The vision of the company is to provide full circularity to the composites industry by allowing, on one side, efficient repair, and on the other side, efficient recycling. And I think that's in our core vision, and that's why also every team member is working every day, and we are fully aligned also, all the team members around that. And into our offer, that's what I mentioned before. We hired a sustainability manager early in this year to specifically run some life cycle analysis and be sure that what we are doing is truly an impact. And I think because in today's world, there are too much things that we believe is making a good impact, but actually it's not. And so that's really what we are doing as well with those quantification, and be sure that our customers can realize as well the impact that we have. And because for each case it's going to be different, and we need to see if it makes sense now for maybe a few parts, for 100 parts, for 1,000 parts, or for 1,000,000 parts. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing in there. But more globally, we are really playing into the 3R circular economy framework and 3R strategy: reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce by having an impact with our products at the production stage. reuse by being able to extend the lifetime of those parts, and recycle by providing the recycling at the end of life. So for all those reasons, we are totally with the sustainability at the core of the company, and we are fully aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals 7, 12, and 13.
So how would you assess the impact of your solution for your customers?
We are working with some quantification with specific programs to assess the impact of the materials, and you know, when you're doing life cycle analysis, it's not only thinking of what is in your material and how will you extend the lifetime, but you need to take the globality, the global thing around that, and to take into account the production, the transport as well. This is quite trivial, but you need as well to consider the electricity around your production, the emissions around all that production, and what we are doing even more is when we are repairing, quantifying what is the effect of repair, typically with a heat gun, how much the heat gun does consume for this repair. And this gives like a scenario, and we are doing that mostly for model cases or with customers for specific cases, and we can then say, okay, the customer or the industrial partner is using that. CompPair is now bringing the new materials with different inputs, with different, let's say, transport elements, with different maybe raw materials element. And globally, if we get the comparison between the two, CompPair is higher in terms of life cycle analysis. So that's how we quantify.
Maybe to finish, how would you see your company in the coming months, years or so? In the coming months or years, where we see the company is, of course, with CompPair materials onto application on the market. So you being able to buy some sporting goods with CompPair products in it, and that's coming. We're looking forward to it, but it's still gonna take time. And that's where we will run some pre-series and then some series production. And yeah, in the future, as mentioned before, our target is to really get towards, for sure, the leisure, but also the wind and the aerospace industry. This last one, where we have already some support, where we are into a program from the European Space Agency as well, and so we are really tackling those different verticals in parallel because of the acquisition times. Okay, and maybe to finish, why would the public vote for your startup, for the La Mobilière Crédit Public, instead of another startup?
Good question, and I think it's not because we have a better product or a better business model or etc. Because every startup that is here at this stage, I think, deserves totally to have such a prize. But I think with our case, what is really interesting is the strategy in terms of business model, in terms of how we tackle this industry, this massive industry with big industrials, with really major OEMs, where it takes time and where we need to put in place a specific strategy and put in place some strong bases as well for the industry. And I think that's what we have done, and especially with the team, and what I heard from external actors into from the company and what they see from CompPair is that we are building now this credibility, we are building this strong base, and so I'm really proud that we are reaching that stage and that we have such a good visibility also onto the market, because for us it's really important, and I'm most importantly really proud of the team, because that's, as I said, not only me, it's the entire team behind also that is contributing to that success. So I think for all those reasons, I hope that the public will vote for us, and I really hope that you will join us on this impactful journey.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer, for your time, and we wish you all the best for the next step of the competition.
Thanks to you for your time, and yeah, looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you.